Fantasy Football Factory. We got the King of the South, Mintzy. We got Moody on the sticks. I am Stephen Cheah. Welcome in. We're presented by DraftKings. Think a quarterback will throw more than 300 yards? Think that Philly running back? We're going to talk about that in a minute. We'll have less than 100. How about that receiver in Miami grabbing a touchdown? Put your money where your mouth is and check out the DraftKings Pick 6 app, the newest way to compete against others to play fantasy football to win cash with DraftKings. It's super started. First, download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app. Then choose a player that'll have more or less of a stat. Like I said, yards, touchdowns, catches, and more. Then get your picks right and you'll win cash. And for first-time Pick 6 players, check this out. New customers play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on me. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code FACTORY, FACTORY. That's code FACTORY. New customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Offer expires 9/19 only. The DraftKings Pick 6 app. The crown is yours. You want to break down all 22 like me? Get this offer. All right. So, Mintzy, we are here. Week 1 is in the books. Pick 1 might be in the books. Christian McCaffrey, I don't know if you want to call it a late scratch, but he was a surprise out for some. We knew that he had a calf injury that he hurt at the end of last year, was lingering throughout camp. Potentially some hesitancy to pick him up first overall pick, which unanimously he's a first overall pick in every format. Maybe if you're going 2 quarterback, he's not the number 1 overall pick. I'm in a 2 quarterback league. He went 2nd overall. But how do we feel about Christian McCaffrey? Jordan Mason then having a great game on Monday night. Standalone Monday night game, so you're kind of screwed if you don't have him as a handcuff. Jordan Mason maybe misspeaking, saying that he found out Friday night he was going to start. How do you feel about this as a Christian McCaffrey manager yourself?
I got a lot of things to say, and none of them are good. I played fantasy football since I was I guess 12 or 13 years old. This may be the most painful situation I've ever been through in 28 years of playing it. My dumb ass, and I'll call myself out, we admit when we're good, we brag when we're good, we own it when we're bad. In my Bitcoin league, I spent 63 on McCaffrey out of 200, which I thought was a fine value. I knew about the calf thing, but I thought, it's kind of BS. I thought they were just holding out of camp. I don't know why I thought that with McCaffrey's injury history. And at the end of the draft, I knew to get Jordan Mason on the handcuff just to be careful. And I bet a couple bucks on him thinking I'd get him, and someone stole him from me. Shay, I woke up Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. with a knot in my stomach that only comes when you're dealing with depression, relationship problems, job problems, or family members are dying. Or this Christian McCaffrey situation in a Bitcoin league. That's how upset I am about it. And going forward, I think it's a stage 5 disaster. I know they're playing it low, saying he's probably not going to play against Minnesota. He ain't going to play against Minnesota. He probably ain't going to play the next 4-5 weeks, I don't think. And when he does come back, the Niners are going to be playing for a playoff berth, and Jordan Mason proved with 28 for 145 he can run the ball. So when he does come back, he ain't going to be getting 25 carries. He's going to be getting 10. They're going to be splitting it, and he's going to be catching some passes. It's a total train wreck on every level, and to the point where I'm losing sleep about it. That's how upset I am. It's the worst situation, and it's horrible. I'm screwed, and I deserve it. And moving forward in fantasy, a lot to unpack here. Jordan Mason, in the name with Kyle Shanahan, remember his dad, Mike Shanahan. Remember Mike Anderson running for 1,500 yards.
Yep.
Remember all the random running backs.
If you
can one cut into the ground and go in that zone blocking scheme, you can do it. It doesn't matter when you're drafted. And Mason looked like perfect in that line, that Niners offensive line get to the second level. No reason to think he can't be really solid going forward. He's the biggest ad this week, obviously. And we'll get to him with the pricing.
He should have been owned in most leagues, not only for playing Monday night, but if you have, we talked about it preseason. We taped it mid-August. We knew that he was dealing with a calf, but at that time didn't seem to be a major issue. Once we got to, after week 3 of the preseason, he's still missing practice. There was certainly some room for pause. I don't want to get too into my fantasy league, 2 quarterback league. I had the 5th overall pick. I was thinking if Christian McCaffrey does fall, which I don't think he will, I had actually removed him from my board. We had a Labor Day draft. I decided that day.
You just didn't want to deal with it.
Too risky. You can't deal with somebody with a lingering injury that high, especially, if you're picking one in a, if you're doing a snake draft, you're not a 12-team league, you're not picking again until 24. So that's a massive gap you cannot afford to miss. So that is tough. $63 out of a $200 budget. That's a hefty price tag. So if you're missing that budget, that's tough to deal with.
Well, I mean, if I would have just I thought I could get Mason for 2 or 3, and I couldn't. And if I would have just had half a brain and kept 6 to say, hey, I have to get him on the handcuff, I mean, I would have been okay with everything. And now I'm just screwed, and I'm pissed. And, it's nice to know that my team feels ruined in week 1. So how is everybody else doing? Hope everybody else is doing well.
I have a serious question, though. How, as a fantasy manager, would you have preferred San Francisco to handle this? Do you wish that going into the season he was on the PUP list? I feel like that's probably the most ideal solution, but if so, I have no idea where Christian McCaffrey gets drafted. Maybe the bottom of the 2nd round. Like, he's so much better than everyone else when he plays. How would you have preferred San Francisco handling this? It seems like Jordan Mason got the news he was going to start at some point Friday night.
I want to call out San Francisco for this. I get the NFL; it's all about secrecy, and you're pushing small edges.
You got bettors out there,
but no. Now that DraftKings and fantasy and gambling are millions and millions and millions of dollars, and sponsors, you got to be more transparent with this. And I think that they should be fined for this, for withholding the information. I really do.
I honestly agree.
Jack Mack talked about it, and I agree with them. You can't. You're just dealing with such high stakes for so many people that there has to be more transparency, and I think there should be some accountability here. I really do. And I'm not – well, of course I'm saying this because I'm bitter. Let's be honest. But even withstanding my situation, it's just it's too much money and too big a business to not be more transparent. My thoughts.
I want to get the exact date of it, but it was a few years ago where David Johnson, the running back for the Cardinals,
yes,
I believe it was the Cardinals' official Twitter. He was like questionable leading up to the game, and they're like, they had a good matchup against the Giants, and David Johnson was, I believe, a first-round pick that year. And they were like, is he playing? Like, David Johnson is definitely in, like, the official Cardinals Twitter account. And then he either played 1 snap or 0 snaps. And then I forget who the backup running back at the time was. If it was like LaRod, I don't think it was LaRod Stevens-Howling, but like, anyway, the backup running back went crazy, like 145, like 2 touchdowns. And it's like, I can't believe like the fucking Arizona Cardinals Twitter account duped us. This feels similar, but
the stakes are way higher now that gambling's legal, though.
And the fact that, the San Francisco 49ers should not concern themselves with like fantasy football. But at the same time, this is a standalone Monday night game. You are screwed if you did not have Jordan Mason in your lineup. I saw Isaiah Guerrero pickups going wild on Monday.
Now, I picked up Kyle Juszczyk trying to get a guy out there. And he got tackled on the 1 on that 40-yard pass.
He did.
I was just like, well, hopefully he can get in the end zone. I mean, that's how desperate.
Rostering and starting a fullback is a tough move.
No, it was. But I mean, and then I was down to 17, and Mason obviously got more than that. And I'm in pieces, dude. I'm still so upset. It's Wednesday and we're taping. But you know what? We got a lot of other positive stuff to break down. It ain't all negative.
Well, I want to stay in the negative for a little bit because my mentions were an absolute dumpster fire on Friday night. So I had to take on this pod, on running back preview, saying stay away from Saquon Barkley. I did not think that he was a relevant fantasy football impact performer in the past several years. I did use a very cherry-picked stat, which was extremely obvious to anyone watching the video. He had over 1,005 rushing yards, I believe, once in the last 5 years. Doesn't catch the ball as much as you would think based on his versatility. He is a very talented player. Week 1 in Brazil, 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 catches, 23 yards receiving, and 1 touchdown. So 3 total touchdowns. If you're playing PPR, 33.2 fantasy points. RB1 this week by a lot. Saquon Barkley. And let me tell you something. I'm not really walking back this take too much. This is a season-long take. Saquon Barkley misses, on average, I believe it's 4.5 games per season over the past, I think it's like 4 or 5 years. Let's relax. Saquon Barkley looked great. I will fully admit that. He looked awesome. We saw the tush push at the end of the game or the brotherly shove attempt to happen, and it was totally botched. I don't know if that's a Jason Kelsey thing. I don't know if they just haven't had enough practice with it. They're coming off camp. Preseason is very light. You're probably not doing that a lot. We'll see what the Eagles do on the goal line. If Saquon Barkley takes over goal line carries, or is even like I don't see why they would do this since Jalen Hurts is very good at it. But if they made him like a wildcat quarterback in the goal line into the tush push with him, if he gets goal line carries, he is going to be a factor. A lot of this take hinged on if he's going to be healthy. He also hasn't been very good. I will say, week 1, he proved me wrong as far as his ability to do it on the field. Let's see if he can sustain it for, upwards of 17 games. If he misses 1 or 2 games, that's not going to be a big deal. But if he misses, in the 3, 4, 5, 6, let's see where he finishes. I would still, at this point, given his history and recent performance, be surprised if he finished as a top 10 running back for the year.
Well, I think the point on your thing is it's going to come down to if he stays healthy, and that's been a huge problem for him.
A lot of it, yes. Green Bay was also terrible, and the field. There's a lot of things. Let's see. Philadelphia, good track record of guys being able to run the football. They obviously have a very good offensive line. If Saquon can stay healthy and he can continue to play at this level, he looked great. I'm willing to admit that. Let's see if he can keep it up for the full year. I wish him the best health-wise. Track record shows differently. But speaking of hot takes, that if we're judging season-long takes after week 1, I might have been wrong on Marvin Harrison for how low I was on him, because I was lower than everybody else on him, and I might have been too high on him.
One catch, 4 yards.
4 yards.
And Arizona scored a ton of points.
They did. He was open on one play that was just blatantly missed.
Yeah, Kyler missed him late in the game.
But tough opening for Marvin Harrison Jr. Greg Dortch just absolutely torching him as far as fantasy value. He's probably still available on your waiver wire.
Michael Wilson got in the end zone too.
Michael Wilson, yes. But let's talk about that game specifically, or maybe not specifically that game. I know there was a lot of hype for Dalton Kincaid. You were in the front of that line. I saw some cut-ups where he's getting triple teamed, so I'm not super worried about him. But overall, the tight end position.
What the hell happened?
Gone.
Everybody.
Isaiah Likely, and then nobody else.
Evan Ingram 1 for 5.
Yep.
I mean, it was a disaster. Laporta still got some targets, but he's very touchdown dependent.
Kelsey was like 33 yards.
Yeah, KC, featuring Rice and Worthy more. Mm-hmm. It was a disaster. And going into week 2, you mentioned Isaiah Likely. You said you spent a huge amount of your budget on him. I like that because he's almost kind of like their second receiver. Like he's more of a wide, the way they use him. And other than Zay Flowers, they don't have. I mean, I know Bateman may be alive and showed a pulse a little bit, but he's still, him, Andrews, and Zay Flowers are going to get all the targets.
So I don't want to get too deep into like my own personal fantasy league, but I did spend a large portion of my waiver budget on Isaiah Likely, and the reason is I was waiting in the draft to get a tight end. I got sniped on Bowers and Taysom Hill, so I got David Njoku, which I was okay with in like last round or second to last round. And he got hurt. He's not officially out, but he's week to week. Deshaun Watson's looked horrible. I had heard actually on the Move the Sticks podcast with Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks. Daniel Jeremiah has very good ties to Baltimore. And he said, I believe he was talking to Eric DaCosta, that they're going to lead the league in 12 personnel. So they're going to have 1 back, 2 tight ends very often. And Isaiah Likely, if he's playing very often, that's great. Because the reason that people have pumped the brakes on Isaiah Likely is Mark Andrews is the tight end 1 there. But if Isaiah Likely is going to be on the field a lot, I mean, he looked like the best tight end in the league on Thursday night. And I get it's a 1-game sample size. He was very good towards the end of last year. So if he's on the field a lot, which was a concern going into the year, then he is absolutely worth it. And if I have the best tight end was was it Colby Parkinson? That's not where I want to be tight end wise. So I view it as an investment for the year, like Julius Thomas was 10 years ago. You find a tight end that pops. Mm-hmm. Week 1, you spend some money on him, and then you ride him out through the rest of the year. So I'm hoping that Isaiah Likely can be that for me.
So you would say
position as a whole was a disaster.
So you would say he's most likely to succeed?
Hopefully. I do really if you drafted Taysom Hill, you got to be really happy.
Oh, you got to, because the usage on the Saints, and obviously I'm going to be excited because the Saints offense hadn't looked like that since the Breeze Payton era. But Clint Kubiak, that's the whole thing. They may have solved this offensive coordinator crisis. And you know what he's doing? He's getting his best damn players on the field. And when he's got Taysom Hill and Kamara both out there at running back, I mean, Hill's catching the ball. He's going to get 5 to 8 carries. They'll be using him in the red zone to score touchdowns. I mean, you got to be just thrilled if he's your tight end right now. And we'll get into DFS. He's $3,900 this week. It's good value.
Yeah. So let's talk about DFS. Obviously, DraftKings is a place we're playing at full point PPR, 4-point passing touchdowns, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a defense special team unit. Let's talk about the quarterbacks. Top of the market, we got Lamar Jackson, $7,700, which is quite a bit more expensive, 10% more expensive than the number 2, which is Patrick Mahomes. Certainly some values there. We got, guys like Will Levis, Sam Darnold down to $5,200, but you're looking at a $2,500 window to spend. Is there anybody that popped out to you?
Matthew Stafford at $6,000. I want to talk about this game he had Sunday night. I thought one of the most warrior performances I've ever seen, considering how his left tackle went down and that scrub they had in there trying to block Hutchinson. Stafford, I don't think Sean McVay's ever lost to Arizona. It's crazy what the Rams stats are. This game's in Arizona. It's a high over-under. He threw for over 300 last week. I know Puka Nacua is going to be out, but I still feel really good about Kupp. And then we'll get into – I've got another value on the Rams coming. But I think Stafford at $6,000 is a great value. You could look at another 300-yard, 2 or 3 touchdown game here against Arizona, which should be a high-scoring game. So he's my quarterback. DraftKings is a $3.5 million $20 contest, so we've kind of each filled out teams, or at least I think we did.
Yeah, I did the Pardon My Take contest, and then I just duplicated that team.
Moody had a shot at the Pardon My Take contest, by the way.
Did you? Moody?
Well, early on I did. And then, so my guy was Cortland Sutton last week, and I paired it with Bo Nix to kind of go the contrarian side of things because I didn't think anybody was going to be on that. And I was able to save money, and the rest of my lineup was pretty damn good, but those guys really let me down. I went from 30th closing early, and then I finished 80-something maybe. So I did okay. But I definitely did not finish the way that I wanted to. We'll see. That was one of my first times really doing DFS. I have not done a ton of DFS. I have a feeling as this season goes on, I'm going to slowly but surely pick up steam. But, yeah, I kind of was let down by Cortland Sutton in the 4 o'clock window.
Yeah. If you're not first, you're last.
That's the thing with that. That's the thing with DFS. But, I mean, you can find those values that hit. But quarterback-wise, I'm going Stafford $6,000. What do y'all have? What do y'all think?
One that stood out to me was Jaden Daniels, $6,200. He's coming off a week where I believe he was QB2, 88 yards rushing.
I was on last week. He was my big pick and 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and remember, DraftKings is going to pay out that or give you that bonus, the 3-point bonus for 300 yards passing, which I'm assuming you're going to be gunning for with Stafford. The 100 rushing yards or the 100 receiving yards. He's absolutely a threat for the 100 rushing yards. He ran for 88 yards, and he didn't have any monster run. He just ran it a lot. So they're playing the Giants this week, the team that gave up 14 straight completions to Sam Darnold. This is a game that he should do much better passing-wise, and I still think the run is going to be a threat, so I think he is a very good value at $6,200 coming off a QB3 week.
I like that. I'll say this. He ran 15 times in week 1. Mm-hmm. You better enjoy the rushing value these first few weeks because if he keeps running like that, he's going to get banged up as the season goes on. I mean, that's a lot of carries, but the value's still there early.
It's a week-to-week play.
Yeah, it's a week-to-week play. The value's still there, and I thought he looked by far the best of the 3 starting rookie quarterbacks. It wasn't even close, but, Nix and Williams both looked terrible. But the only thing on Washington, he missed McLaurin on a 75-yard touchdown to start the second half, but, man, the rest of that receiving core is dust. They were Zacchaeus. Who the hell are these guys out there? Zacchaeus and
Brown.
They just don't – I'm worried that their passing game's not going to be what I hoped it was going to be because the rest of those receivers look so bad.
Yeah. Do you like it one at the very bottom tier? Justin Fields, $5,400 going against a tough Denver D. Derek Carr, $5,300 coming off a very good week. We got Daniel Jones, $5,300 going against Washington. Will Levis, $5,200. Looked very good in the first half. Horrendous decision making. Second half, $5,200, and Sam Darnold, $5,200.
I like Sam Darnold. I think Darnold looked really good last week. He obviously started.
Sam Darnold revenge game.
Yeah, this game in Minnesota too could get a little wilder in the dome. I know you're shocked to hear me say that.
Yeah.
Darnold's my favorite of the cheap ones. I think there's a chance he could throw. And look, Rodgers threw for 167, and the Niners still have a really good defense. He made some good throws. It was up and down. But I think this Niners-Vikings could get a little wild. So Darnold, 5,200 is my favorite cheaper option.
Moody, is there anybody you like in the quarterback?
I hate this guy as a player, but there is 1 week, and this is the only time you were ever going to hear me say this guy's name, is Daniel Jones. I think against the Washington secondary, this is going to be a very high-scoring game. I expect Daniel Jones to not only use his legs in this game, but to find Malik Neighbors a lot. The only time I would ever roll with Daniel Jones is this week against Washington, $5,300. The value is there. I do not think he is a great NFL quarterback, but I do think he could be good for 1 week in DFS.
Danny Pennies is what they're calling him. Outside of his own stadium. Just tough.
It's deserved. It's deserved.
Schefter comes out and announces he's starting week 2. I mean, you're already having to make an announcement that he's the starting quarterback.
I think Daboll did that, but yeah.
But, I mean, he's coming out with that in week 2 after you give him 4 and 160 this offseason. That's not a good sign.
Oh, two years ago, but yeah. All right, running backs. So we got Jonathan Taylor, top of the market. Homecoming game is going to it's in Green Bay. Played collegiately at Wisconsin, so I like him. $7,700. Breece Hall, $7,400. Then we see a pretty big drop-off. We're going to $6,800. Kyron Williams. Derrick Henry, $67. And then it falls in line as such. We can get some values. Down low, I got Jaleel McLaughlin, $4,500. Bucky Irving, $4,900. But is there anybody you specifically like in the running backs?
All right, 2. My number 1 guy this week is Isaiah Pacheco at $6,900. Here's why. The Bengals have the last few years have had a very good pass defense and a mediocre run defense. It's gotten even worse with DJ Reader going to Detroit. Last week, Ramondre Stevenson had almost 100 yards. Yep. I think Cincinnati, KC, this is one of these games where they get the lead and they play with the lead, and Pacheco over 100 with a touchdown or 2. I'm huge on Pacheco this week. He's my number 1. And I think at $6,900, the value's there. I love him this week. I think that he's my favorite.
Okay. A couple guys that I'd point out. I've been banging the Rachaad White drum for a while. I mean, he had 7 catches. Very, very good running for fantasy. His efficiency, not great. I did break down the tape. A lot of that is not on him. There were a lot of really poorly blocked plays. He did have a 15-yard run, so he does have some juice. Bucky Irving on the Bucs is a guy who's going to get carries. I do think he's going to be overplayed this week at $4,900. He's a guy that I think people are thinking is going to take over the RB1 role. I don't anticipate that. He got a lot of his carries in the second half when the game was out of hand. So he's one that I think is a very good pickup for fantasy. I think you might want to hold this week going against a good Detroit run defense. I believe he had 1 or 2 catches. Like, he did not catch the ball very often.
Yeah, and keep in mind, PPR, full point PPR in DraftKings pricing. So Rachaad White's receiving ability, very, very valuable. I mean, I thought he looked good catching the ball. I mean, he got tackled on the one time too. Yeah. So he could have found the end zone. And that should be also in DFS. One thing we talk about, like, when in doubt, you want to get guys in games with high over-unders. Tampa Bay, Detroit, highest one of the week at 51.5. The playoff game was 31-24 last year. Mayfield saw no reason why you wouldn't be encouraged about him, especially with the way he played on third down last week. I think that's a good value.
I bet him MVP 100-1. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it's great value.
Oh, the value's there.
Running backs, we have to talk about Jordan Mason. He's $5,200. We're taping this on Wednesday morning in full transparency. It is 10:40 Central Time in the morning. It's been said unlikely that Christian McCaffrey plays. Jordan Mason at $5,200 is coming off the Monday night game. I realize it's going to be a short week against Minnesota, but he is I don't see how you don't pick him up under cost.
No, I agree. I've got him on my team. The thing with Mason, though, the one thing about DFS is you got to find angles that everyone doesn't see, and he's going to be, because he's only $5,200, he's going to be the highest owned player by far this week. Mm-hmm. I still think you have to have him. He's the number 1 guy getting the carries. You saw the way that offensive line played. I think this game could be higher scoring in Minnesota. But the only thing about it is everyone's going to have him, but that doesn't mean he's still not a good play. I mean, the value at $5,200 if McCaffrey's out, Mason should be $6,500 or $7K.
Yeah. One guy I do want to point out, he's a name brand. I can see him out of a bounce back, especially on a long week in a game they should win by a lot. Derrick Henry, $6,700. I realize it's PPR, but I would anticipate he's going to get to that 100-yard bonus, the 3 extra points, and I could see him getting in zone 1 or 2 times.
Moody, I know is Henry your number 1 this week? I know you were talking about how much you liked him this week.
Yeah, I don't know that he's my number one, but he's definitely right there at the top. I love Pacheco and Henry as far as the guys that are going to cost you a lot. I just think the second half of that game, they're going to ride Derrick Henry. How does he not, just put away the contest for the Ravens? And then the guy that I like as far as value is concerned, I don't think he's going for 120 plus again this week, but it's J.K. Dobbins. Going up against Carolina. Carolina is going to turn the football over. The Chargers should play from ahead in this game. Gus Edwards looked awful. He averaged like 2 yards a pop last week. J.K. Dobbins, while he is not the elite burner that he once was, still showed great vision, looked good out there. I think from the 20 to 20, you're going to see a lot of J.K. Dobbins. He's obviously the pass-catching back out of the backfield. I like J.K. Dobbins at where he's currently at 5,400 in a game that I think the Chargers win and win handily. They beat up on Carolina, and Dobbins reminds people that, hey, I'm a pretty damn good football player whenever I'm on the field.
Yeah, two other guys I just wanted to point out. One is Tank Bigsby. He is $100. He did a really nice job last week, and they are going against Cleveland. I realize Cleveland is a good run defense, but at $5,100, that's a potential cost savings. And then I mentioned it before, but Jaleel McLaughlin going against the Steelers. He's a guy who catches passes, and I believe he outsnapped Javonte Williams. So at $4,500, if you're getting, he might not start the game, but if he's going to get more snaps, I think that's a pretty valuable guy. Especially
Here's what happened in Denver. So Javonte Williams missed a big blitz pickup on third down, and it pissed off
Sean P.
I'm drawing a blank on it. Yeah, Sean Payton. Sean P was mad, man. Sean P set him on the bench for like 3 straight possessions. McLaughlin got a bunch of carries. Looked okay. I expect this to be this is going to be a volatile backfield the entire season. Like, it looks like they want Williams to be the dude, Cheah, but I don't know that Williams is going to be able to make Sean P happy enough to truly be the guy. So this is a backfield that's going to be just all over the place the entire season, in my opinion.
Problem is, the only thing with that is that game's going to be, very low scoring. The over-under is 37.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Receivers, hopefully none of these guys are low scoring. We got CeeDee Lamb top of the market at $8,800. He looked very good until they started being super conservative towards the end. Justin Jefferson, $8,300. Amon-Ra St. Brown looking for a bounce back game against the Bucs, $8,100. Jamar Chase, $7,800, and then Cooper Kupp, $7,600. It kind of falls off after that. There are some pretty good values. We got Allen Lazard at $3,300 after a very good week one.
Yeah.
Anyone stand out to you, Mintzy?
All right, I went with a strategy this week where I went Stafford, Mason, and Pacheco, so I didn't spend too big. Mm-hmm. On my team, I have Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. I spent all the money to get them too. There's a debate for me who was the top guy this week, because the thing is, DraftKings is PPR. Cooper Kupp got 21 targets in a pro football game last week. 21! Caught 14 balls. Puka Nukla's out. Stafford, their whole passing game short to feed him, and Arizona's crappy defense. So I love Kupp at $7,600. And then I know Jefferson's expensive at $8,300, but Darnold looking good. Game in the Dome. I thought Garrett Wilson looked pretty good against San Francisco. I think Jefferson's really good too. So I'd make a debate. I don't know which one of those two I like more. I think Jefferson's got a higher ceiling because he could have 150 or 200 yards, whereas Kupp is more of you're trying to get the 10, 12 catches. But I went with both of them. I spent most of my money on those two guys on my strategy.
I saw an interesting take. So Garrett Wilson obviously strongly correlated with Aaron Rodgers. I saw an interesting take. I think it was from Chris Sims, who said that Rodgers does not look comfortable in the pocket. He's taken a hop and thrown it. And if you looked at his chart, all of his, I think all except 1 or 2 were to the left side or middle. So he is not really able to get to the full field and get to all his reads and kind of move around comfortably back there. That certainly could change with more reps and stuff like that. But again, the guy tore his Achilles a year ago. One guy I would point out, and I'm saying this without a smile on my face, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown has a big bounce back game this week against the Bucs. $8,100. He was almost invisible against the Rams. And I think they really make it a point to get him the football in a big game, obviously, in the early window on Sunday against the Bucs.
I could see the logic on that. The only concern I have about Amon-Ra this year, and I'm not freaking out about week one, that offense is really good. He has a high target share. I know that maybe he didn't have the best week one game, but I don't think he's a guy you push the panic button on. Mm-hmm. The only thing with them is there's all of a sudden a lot of mouths to feed with Laporta and Gibbs and Montgomery and Jameson Williams emerging. There's a lot of dudes. But the thing is, they still score a lot of points. So, like, I still think Amon-Ra is fine this year. I just maybe his target share isn't quite as high this year as it was in the past.
Yep.
But I still, he had 1,500 yards last year. I still think he gets 12 or 1,300. I don't think there's any reason to panic.
I would point out Jameson Williams is $5,300, and the Bucs lost the best safety in football, Antoine Winfield. He's going to be out for this game. Their number 2 cornerback, their nickel cornerback, and a cornerback a little bit lower in the depth chart. So they are heavily down in the secondary. Antoine Winfield plays free safety, so Jordan Whitehead is typically going to play a little bit more in the box. So their deep coverage is gone. Jamel Dean is a good corner. I'm interested to see if he's lining up on St. Brown or Jameson Williams, but Jameson Williams should be able to get on top of the defense. So I think Jameson Williams at $5,300 is a pretty good value.
Funny you mentioned that. He's my third receiver with Jefferson and Kupp. The thing with DFS, we talked about it last week, will be you're trying to win. You're playing to win the game, and Jameson Williams could catch 70-yard touchdowns. And, it seems like when you look at the trajectory of his career, it was awesome his last year at Bama. He tore his ACL in the national championship game, which caused him to lose the first year.
Yep.
He had the gambling scandal and a hamstring injury last year.
Yep.
And so right when people were starting to be down on him, he finally got healthy, came off all that, and was emerging late last year. And now he's got the deep role in this offense that scores a lot of points. So I don't – and he got a handoff or two. They're trying to get him the ball. So I actually hit, by the way, shout out DraftKings. I maxed out his over at 89.5 and boosted it to 11-1 and hit it on Sunday. But I don't think the Jameson Williams Week 1 performance is a fluke at all. I think he's a playmaker. I just think he had a lot of stuff happen the first 2 years of his career, and he's finally emerging.
Yeah, Moody, are there any receivers you really like?
I really like Malik Neighbors. Going back to what I said earlier about Danny Pennies, this is a week where he has to be good against a bad Washington secondary. I think Malik Neighbors has obviously shown himself after week 1 that he is the number 1 receiver there. He's really the only talented receiver on the entire roster. I expect to see him have a large target share in this game. I don't hate Terry McLaurin in this game either. I know he was awful in week 1, but I expect this to be one of the higher scoring contests of the week. But I really like Malik Neighbors at 5,900. He's right there kind of in that, second tier of wide receivers as far as their value is concerned. Malik Neighbors is a guy that will certainly be on my team this week against a bad Washington secondary.
Yeah. A couple values I like to point out. Chris Godwin, $6,000 was very, very good. PFF's top-rated receiver for week 1. Brian Thomas Jr. had a very good game, $4,800. Greg Dortch, the Cardinals' leading receiver from week 1, $4,600. Andre Iosivas, Yoshi, $3,800. Shout out to this is my bold fantasy move of the week. Week 1, we got the commissioner of the baseball players fantasy football draft, and Ebo and Blutman are running things for Big Cat's team.
Okay.
They benched Drake London in favor of Yoshi week 1, which was a ballsy move. It actually, the difference was fairly insignificant. I think it was like within a point, but ballsy move. Week 1.
Fortune favors the bold.
It does. Jalen McMillan, my guy from last week, he's up a little bit. He's at $3,800. He almost had 2 touchdowns. I don't know whether to put this on him or Baker, but it looked like he missed it by just a little bit. He would have had a walk-in touchdown. He could have had 2. And then Alan Lazard, I pointed out, $3,300 after week 1. I don't know if he's going to repeat that performance necessarily. I don't know if they're going to be throwing a lot against the Titans. I think that game's going to be more competitive than people think.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it's going to be points galore, but I think that's going to be a close game.
Yeah, my only question on Lazard, and this is just the Jets in general, is like you mentioned the Rodgers questions. He threw for 167.
Yep.
I just don't think you're going to be seeing these yardage numbers from him.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating. What do you have, 90 yards? I'm not anticipating that every week, but if he can get you 60 yards and a touchdown at $3,300, that's great.
I got a $3,300 value I'm in love with.
Hit me.
Tyler Johnson for the Rams. I saw out of him second half. He had 5 for 79 against Detroit. He actually has speed. And with Nuka out, I think people think DeMarcus Robinson's going to be the number 2, and he's not. I like Tyler Johnson in the game that could have a lot of points against Arizona.
I'm very familiar with Tyler Johnson.
I know you are. He's an ex-Buck, but Sean McVay knows how to turn water into wine at wide receiver more than anybody I've ever seen. And I just think that everything the Rams were throwing was short except the Johnson. And I think that game's going to be outscored.
One of the biggest catches in Bucs history, 3rd and 10 at the Superdome. Unbelievable catch.
Yeah, I know.
Rookie year.
Jared Cook fumbling. I'll never get over it.
Tight ends. We start top of the market. Sam Laporta, $6,300. Colby Parkinson, kind of bottom of the market, $3,100. Kelsey, $6,200. Trey McBride, $6,000, and it drops off pretty well after that. Evan Ingram, $5,400. Is there anybody you really like in the tight end position?
I don't want to steal your thunder on Likely, so I'll let you take that. Taysom Hill. Isaiah Likely and Taysom Hill. Hill at $3,900. Just the usage, the way they're using him, the last few years it's been so frustrating because he'd come in for like 2 possessions a game. He's in there all the time. He's getting carries. He's catching the ball. 3,900. He's likely he can find the end zone. Also think in this game, Dallas has such an elite pass rush, and the Saints have big questions with Penning at right tackle and left guard with Lucas Patrick. I think the Saints are going to run the ball a lot to try to protect Carr and stay out of 3rd long. I just think you have to because you can't let Micah Parsons and them pin their ears back against this bad offensive line. And so because of that, I think Hill might get 8 to 10 carries. He might catch some passes. And 39 until his pricing goes up to 5,000, he's a value every week the way in this offense.
We're going to talk about it in a couple minutes, but I think Taysom Hill is going to be my guy in every lineup this week. Like, if based on the value, I think that his ceiling is so high. But one other guy I want to point out, Isaiah Likely is $4,800, but Brock Bowers, $4,400. This guy had 11.8 points in PPR last week. They're looking to get him the football. They're not a good offense. He's one of the very few guys, him and Devontae Adams, that you can really count on. And I think in a game that I think is probably going to get out of hand, I realize that the Ravens have Roquan Smith and they're a good defense, but I think Brock Bowers is going to put up some points, and him under cost at $4,400, I think is good value.
And, hey, if it does get out of hand garbage time, Minshew's made for garbage time.
Yep.
Made for it. And if the Ravens are playing with the lead, I think that could be not the worst thing.
And on your Tyler Johnson point, Colby Parkinson being at $3,100, if you're looking to save money, this is a guy who emerged week 1. He's got a shot week 2 in what should be a pretty high-scoring game with Arizona.
Yeah, and then strategy-wise, too, because we saw the tight ends bust last week, I would rather go Taysom Hill $3,900, Parkinson $3,100. That's why I'm able to get Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp on my team, because I'm saving the money over $2K at tight end, and now I can get the 2 elite receivers.
Yeah. Moody, are there any tight ends that stand out to you?
So I had Taysom Hill in my lineup last week. I'm actually fading Taysom Hill just a little bit this week against the Cowboys defense. I don't know that I don't like it as much this week as I'm going to most weeks. I have Taysom Hill as my tight end in like 3 of my 5 leagues, so I'm big on him. I just don't necessarily like him this week. One person I am looking at this week though is Zach Ertz. Caught 3 or 4 targets. I just think there is no one on this receiving, on the outside right now for Washington that poses a threat in the red zone. Zach Ertz is really the only guy that's going to pose any kind of threat in the red zone for Washington. So I think Ertz, he could catch 5 balls and a touchdown. I think at $3,500, that's really good value, a veteran security blanket for Jaden Daniels. Zach Ertz at $3,500 is one of my favorite values at tight end.
Let me read you off Zach. I mean, this is dating back a very long time, and he's a very different player right now. But in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games against the Giants, 9 catches, 152 yards, 8 catches, 97 yards, 2 catches, 33 yards, 10 catches, 55 yards. Oh, sorry, those are targets. 9 catches, 152, 8 for 97, 2 for 33, 8 for 55, 6 for 56, and a touchdown, 7 for 43, and a touchdown, 7 for 91 and a touchdown, 9 for 91, 2 touchdowns. Last year with Arizona, 6 for 56, no tutties.
Wow.
But
I love it.
History against the Giants.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily think he's going to catch 10 balls, but 5 for 60 and a score, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility for Zach Ertz at all. And at $3,500 with the way tight end was last week, I'll take 5 catches for 50 and a score. That would be absolutely incredible versus what we saw from most tight ends in week 1.
Yeah. And then finally, defense special team units. This starts at top of the market, Dallas, $4,000. It gets all the way down to the Cardinals at $2,300. This is a place where we're going to use some cost savings. Obviously, everyone's going to be under cost here. What stands out to you, Mintzy?
Man, Moody said it already. I think I'm just going to, until further notice, whoever's playing Carolina is who I'm going with. And Saints last week. This week it's the Chargers at $3,900. That offense is just it's as bad as it gets. And Bryce Young will turn it over. I mean, he was throwing it to Saints. Like the joke I saw on Twitter, he was finding open Saints all over the field last Sunday. And the Chargers defense I thought looked excellent last week, holding the Raiders to 10. So Chargers 3,900 is my defense this week.
Yeah, two that stand out to me. I think a good value is the Seahawks at $3,000. I think they're a very good defense. They're playing the Patriots this week. But then Steelers also going against the Broncos, going against Bo Nix, $3,500.
Yeah, that's a great one.
The Steelers are a team that could score points on defense. So those would be two that I would look at.
The Steelers one, actually, now that you say that the way Knicks looked last week, hard not to like that one.
And also in DraftKings, like, you get points for not giving up a lot of points. So I think that's a solid option there. But Moody, who do you like?
I mean, I'm going to be fading Carolina. That's what I did last week. I put the Saints in at defense. I was happy about it. I'm probably just going to go ahead and take the Chargers once again. Until Bryce Young shows me that he can not throw 3 interceptions in a game, I'm going to continue to fade him. I also like Pittsburgh. I watched the entire Bo Nix game. He did not throw the football more than 7 yards down the field the entire contest. He locked onto Cortland Sutton the entire game. Pittsburgh is really good defensively. They should force some turnovers in this game. So those are two that I definitely do like. And then going further down, I don't know that there's a ton of value outside of these top teams. Like, I really think I think defenses are they're laid out perfectly. I'm not touching any of these bottom teams. I think they're all going to give up a lot of points. So if it's not the Chargers or the Steelers, I'm probably, going with Dallas and just spending the money.
One other one I want to mention, the Colts at 3,300 with Malik Willis playing quarterback in an NFL game. I know the Colts look bad against the Houston, but dude, Malik Willis, when he started those few games last year, I mean, it's not good. I mean, he couldn't throw for 100 yards in pro football games. And so I think just because of that, Green Bay, LaFleur is going to scheme it around him. They're just going to run the shit out of the ball. Yeah. And that's what they're going to do. But
Joe Mixon tore him up in week 1, so maybe we'll get another retread with Josh Jacobs and Green Bay going crazy in week 2. All right, let's I don't know if we want to call this segment if it's like your guy or plant your flag, but who is your guy in every single one of your DFS lineups? This is the guy that you know is going to have a big week 2. And we did pretty well in these week 1.
We did. I believe who all we had Daniels. Who all we have?
I had Jalen McMillan in every lineup, but I also called out Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah. And yeah, I forgot who Moody had.
No, I bricked. This is where my brick was. I had Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton was my guy. I thought he was going to catch a lot of balls. I was flat out wrong. I did, my picks were really good. My fantasy lineups all had a good week 1, but I was wrong as hell about Cortland Sutton in week 1. And when you're wrong, you're wrong. You got to own it. I was very wrong right there.
All right. I'm going Cooper Kupp even at 7,600, and I know that's an obvious call, but this is PPR and he's getting 21 targets. Arizona's defense sucks. I just like the thing with him on this game, as long as he stays healthy, his floor is like 15 or 20 points. I mean, the floor is so high because the target share. So it's a pretty basic call. I do like Jameson Williams, 5,300 as well.
Moody, who is your one guy for this week?
Oh, and Pacheco too. I'm sorry. Isaiah Pacheco.
One guy, Mintzy. Who's your one guy? All right. Take a sip of coffee and tell us who your one guy is. I want one name, first and last.
Isaiah Pacheco. Period.
Okay. All right. For me, it's going to be Malik Neighbors. I just think this is going to be the highest scoring game of the week. Washington's secondary looked absolutely awful in week 1. I expect more of the same. It's Malik Neighbors. He's one of the more talented receivers in the league right now. You can watch him running these routes. He looks the part. The question is, can Daniel Jones get him the damn football? If Daniel Jones will just show up and be average, Malik Neighbors has a huge game here in week 2.
You really think I love Moody's fantasy opinions, and I think he actually – I trust him. Commanders-Giants shootout? You keep saying that. You think?
I think it's happening. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I feel very strongly that both teams are going to move the ball up and down the field against one another. I don't like either one of these defenses. Even though I don't trust Daniel Jones as far as I can personally throw him, I just think this is the one week where he will show up and be competent enough to make it a fantasy shootout. So I think there's going to be points in this game. I think this is going to be one of the fantasy diamonds in the rough for the week as well. And Malik Neighbors is going to be the guy that I'm riding with from this contest.
I'm going to go with Taysom Hill, $3,900. That's such a cost savings. He's going to be on the field. Dallas is a fast defense. New Orleans needs fast players. He is a fast player. The fact that he got 5 carries in week 1 really shows that they are committed to putting him out there. So I like Taysom Hill week 2 against the Dallas Cowboys to have an impact. And I'm not saying he's going to, be tight end 1 for the week, but at $3,900, he's going to represent a good value.
Hell yeah.
All right. I think that's all for Fantasy Football Factory week 2. Set your DFS lines. We're going to be in the exact name of it is the award-winning listeners.
The Pardon My Take. It's $5, right?
It's $5. It is called Pardon My Take Award-Winning Listener League. So we're going to be in that. And I think we're also going to throw our copied entry into the Millionaire Matchmaker contest. But it's been fun. We're going to keep this ride going. DFS is a very fun thing. And we're going to talk regular fantasy on this too, which we did to open the show. Find John Lynch and the 49ers all their picks.
Yeah, screw them.
This was fun. For the King of South Mintzy, for Moody, I'm Stephen Cheah. See you guys next week.
The crown is yours.